They think if they flash a headline on a terminal, you'll panic. They think if Bloomberg and Reuters run a coordinated story at the exact same millisecond, you'll sell everything and run back to the US dollar. And on Thursday, February 12, 2026, for about 30 minutes, they were right. But today we caught them. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened on Thursday wasn't a market movement. It wasn't profit-taking. It wasn't technical selling. This was a PSYOP, a military-grade psychological operation executed by the financial media to provide cover for the banks to exit their short positions. Silver was flying. It had reclaimed $85. The shorts were bleeding. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, a headline hits Bloomberg: Russia considering return to US dollar settlement. The price collapsed, $85 to $74 in minutes. Stop losses triggered. Retail investors panicked and sold everything. But here's what they didn't want you to see. Let me break down exactly what happened and why it was a lie from the first word. Russia has spent the last 4 years dollarizing. They've been sanctioned. They've had hundreds of billions frozen. They built an entire alternative payment system with China. They created BRICS Pay. They hoarded gold at historic rates. They decoupled from the Western banking system specifically so they would never be vulnerable to US dollar hegemony again. And the financial media expects us to believe that on a random Thursday in February, Vladimir Putin woke up and decided to throw away years of strategic statecraft, that he abandoned his closest allies and went back to the system that tried to destroy his economy. It's geopolitical suicide. But the architects of this lie didn't care about logic, they only cared about the reaction. Here's how the manipulation actually worked. The headline flashed, Russia considering return to US dollar settlement system, sources. But when you actually read it, there was no named official, no primary source document, no verification, just whispers, unnamed sources, an invisible memo that no journalist was allowed to quote directly or verify. But in the modern era of high-frequency trading, verification takes too long. The algorithms don't care about journalistic integrity. The bots that control liquidity don't call the Kremlin press office for comment. They simply scrape the text. Natural language processing reads the word Russia, reads US dollar, reads settlement, and their pre-programmed logic triggers instantly. If major global power abandons dollarization, dollar strength increases. If dollar index spikes, hard assets like gold and silver must be crushed. Sell, sell, sell. In less than 60 seconds, billions in paper silver contracts were dumped onto the market. The price collapsed under artificial weight. Technical stop losses triggered. Retail investors watching red candles cascade down their screens panicked and sold their physical ETFs at massive losses. This is spoofing the narrative. Traditionally, spoofing means placing fake orders to trick the market. People have gone to federal prison for that, but the banks adapted. They realized you can't spoof the order book anymore without regulators noticing. So instead, you spoof the sentiment. You inject a highly radioactive piece of fake news directly into the data feeds that feed the machines. You feed the algorithms exactly what they're programmed to fear. The result is identical to illegal spoofing, but it's executed under the impenetrable guise of journalism. But we're not algorithms, we ask questions, we demand receipts. And when you actually look past the algorithmic panic and seek out the reality of the geopolitical situation, the entire Bloomberg narrative collapses. We don't have to rely on rumors or invisible memos. We have the official on-the-record statement from the one person who actually controls Russia's monetary policy. Elvira Nabiullina, governor of the Russian central bank. When the Western media began spinning this fairy tale, she stepped to the microphone and said, "The Bank of Russia is not currently taking part in talks on the possibility for return to US dollars. We are not participating in it. So far, in any case, I need you to read those words carefully. Not currently taking part in talks, not participating, not subtle, not diplomatic, flat, categorical, aggressive denial." She just took a sledgehammer to the Bloomberg headline. The highest-ranking financial official in Russia explicitly confirmed that the entire premise of the market crash was completely fabricated. There are no secret meetings in Moscow. There is no internal consensus to abandon their gold reserves and go back to a fiat currency that was weaponized against them. The memo was a ghost. But here's the ultimate undeniable proof that Thursday's crash was a coordinated hit job. Here's the smoking gun. If Russia was truly going back to the dollar and silver was truly destined to crash, then the massive financial institutions should have been selling physical metal, right? Dumping their bars, moving capital back to fiat cash. But they did the exact opposite. While the media was screaming at you to sell your paper contracts, the whales were quietly backing up armored trucks to the loading docks. While the paper price was bleeding out on the screen, the physical vaults were experiencing a hemorrhage of historic proportions. The price smash was a smoke screen, cover fire, a beautifully manufactured distraction designed to lower the paper price just enough so insiders could execute the largest physical grab of the year without sending the spot price into the stratosphere. We have the vault data, we have the audited receipts. On Thursday, February 12th, the exact same day the price was smashed 10%, a staggering amount of physical metal vanished from the system. 2.8 million ounces, gone, withdrawn, loaded onto armored trucks and removed from the exchange's jurisdiction forever. Think about the logic. If the Bloomberg story was true and silver was crashing, why would anyone take delivery of physical metal? You want cash when the price is falling, not heavy bars that cost money to store. You only withdraw metal if you believe the price is going higher. You only withdraw metal if you're terrified the exchange won't have it tomorrow. So while the news said sell, the whales said take it all. And who was the biggest buyer? JP Morgan. Of that 2.8 million ounce drain, 2.44 million ounces came directly out of the JP Morgan vault. Now, interpret this however you want. Maybe JP Morgan is moving metal for a massive client, a tech company, a sovereign nation demanding immediate delivery. Or maybe JP Morgan itself is removing the metal from the registered category to the private category to hoard it. Either way, the signal is identical. The smash was cover for the grab. They used fake news to lower the price. They used the lower price to fill a massive physical order at a discount. They used the chaos to hide the fact that registered inventory, the silver actually available for sale, just collapsed. The registered category has dropped to 92.88 million ounces. We're dangerously close to breaking below 90 million. We're watching the lifeblood of the exchange drain away in real time. This is the oldest trick in the book. It's called shaking the tree. They shake with fear, with lies, with fake memos. The weak fruit falls, that's you, and they catch it at the bottom. You sold because you thought Russia was pivoting. They bought because they know the vaults are empty. You hold paper. They hold metal. But here's what changes everything. While the banks are playing games with COMEX inventory, a much larger, much more dangerous entity is preparing to enter the market. An entity with a printing press, an entity that doesn't care about price. The United States government. In late 2025, the US officially classified silver as a critical mineral. For decades, it was just another commodity. Now it's on the same list as lithium and cobalt, essential to national security. You cannot build a Tomahawk missile without silver. You cannot manufacture semiconductor chips without silver. You cannot build the solar panels and EV batteries that will power the next decade of American infrastructure without silver. And the government knows the vaults are empty. They know the registered inventory is collapsing. They know JP Morgan just vacuumed up 2.4 million ounces in a single day. They know that when they finally decide to build that strategic stockpile, the price won't be $85. It won't be $150. It might not even be stoppable. David Morgan, the silver guru who has predicted every major turn in this market for 3 decades, just stated clearly, we are now entering the acceleration phase. He cited the rule of commodities: 90% of the move comes in the last 10% of the time. We have approximately 18 months left in this cycle. Think about what that means. We've spent 10 years grinding sideways. We've spent a decade waiting. And now all those gains, the entire repricing of silver from a commodity to a strategic asset, are going to be compressed into the next 18 months. If you blink, you will miss it. The consolidation between $75 and $85 isn't the end. It's the refueling stop before the final vertical ascent. And while you were distracted by a fake Russian headline, the people who understand what's coming didn't hesitate for a single second. They filled their buckets. The question now is, will you wait for the next manufactured crash? Will you let them shake you out one more time? Or will you finally understand that in a market where the fundamentals are this bullish and the supply deficit this severe, the only risk is not owning enough? They think you're stupid. They think if they flash a headline, you'll panic. But now you know exactly what they're doing. And you won't fall for it again.